All right, so now that we have set up our character for the most part right now, we're going to go into creating simple animations inside of Unity. So we looked at how to set up animations on our player character using the animator controller. Now we created a very simple set of animations using the idle, but we are currently using the more complicated animations, and that's all right. So what we want to do is there might be a need in our game to create some sort of simple animation. Let's say perhaps like the this floating ledge or floating rock here, like this monument. Let's say that perhaps we wanted this to float or something like that. It looks like this is actually inside of that, and I don't want that to be there, but so let's go ahead and move this over here. And I want to make this float a little bit. So have a little bit of a bob or something like that. So the way that we could do this is we can go to, let's do something like our animation clips. Let's do workshop files, create, and I'm going to create an animation clip here. So we're going to create, and we'll do animation, and I'm going to call this float. And with this, with it created, we can actually select our rock. And what we'll do is we'll go to add component. We're going to say animation. And let's do animation here. And we're looking for an animation clip. So I'm going to add the float animation clip to this currently. But with that, let's double click on it. And actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's open up our animation window. And let's add this down here. And I'm going to make sure that I have float selected. Okay, so you can see that float is right here. And let's do this. Let's remove that animation clip for now. So we're going to select this. I'm going to actually delete or remove that component, and let's select animation, and we're going to create a new animation controller. It's also going to create an animator with it. So we're going to say float. Okay, so you can see it created that animator, and it also created the controller. And so we're going to add a property, and we're going to add a position property to this. So we're going to do position, add this here, and you'll notice it created a keyframe at the beginning and the end. So this is going to be like a 1 second animation, but I actually want to move this over to something to be like a 6 second character or animation. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to zoom out using my scroll wheel, and I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to take this last keyframe, clicking on the top here. I'm going to move that to 6 seconds. And then I'm going to bring this to about 3 seconds right here. And let's turn on record, so that way any movement that we do on this, any position change that we make, it is going to record that on our current place in the timeline. So we're going to drop this down, something like this. Now this is going to be very simple. We're just going to hit play on this. And as we hit play on this, you'll notice that it's basically just bobbing up and down like a floating rock. So you can see that creating animations is very simple. Now animations, adding keyframes is very easy, but maybe we want to change the overall, let's say, speed or the path that this is taking. We actually have the ability to look at the curves that are available to us. So if we expand this, you can see that we really just changed the overall Y position of this. And so looking at this, you can see we have a very slow out, so it's kind of slow to get started, and then it gradually gets faster until it once it gets to the bottom, then it's slow in, and then slow out again, and then slow in. So that's what creates that floatiness. let's say that we wanted this to bounce a little bit more. What we could do is we could select these handles or these keyframes, and we could adjust these handles to something like this. Okay, and so if I did this, this is actually going to change the animation quite a bit. So it's still up and down, but you'll notice that the top, it's going to bounce or snap just a little bit. So it's almost as if it's hitting a ceiling and then dropping down. So for me, I actually prefer the keyframe to be flat. We can actually right click on tangents, and we could say, let's make this a little bit flat, or make this more flat, so that it'll flatten that off, and that'll give us that slow in and slow out. So right click, it will say flat. And now if we preview it, it's got that nice little float there. All right. So for your participants, it might be a good idea to perhaps create another animation for these floating rocks or something like that, and let them create theirs on their own, okay, using the same technique. So now that we have everything set up for our player, we've looked at animations, let's go ahead and move on to our next activity where we're actually going to start implementing gameplay.